Right. What's up, brother? I'm not sure if you remember me, but I talked to you once before.
I've talked to some other people named Jason. You might have to be a bit more specific.
Well, I was trying to talk about objective morality, and we got a little deep in,
Yes.
Bible fallacy and whatnot.
Yeah, I believe we called in about Christianity in general, and then you wanted to talk about objective morality, and it was kind of at the end of the call, and I kind of wanted to move on. But now we can talk about objective morality now, if that's what you're interested in.
Yeah, because before I would say we could talk about which God or which religion to go by, we would probably have to establish a basis for is God actually real? Is there a God? So
yeah, I agree with that.
That's where I wanted to start with objective morality and origins of time-space continuum.
Well, okay, so let me ask you this, because are you saying that objective morality is evidence or proof of a God?
I would say that objective morality has no basis without an objective standard.
Okay.
Or objective.
Okay. I can see that, but you're not necessarily saying that objective morality itself is proof of like a creator of some kind.
No, yeah, yes, I am. I'm saying yes, I am saying that.
Okay, cool. Well, Mimzy, do you have any questions you want to ask Jason about this?
It's interesting because I never thought about it that way round. Because for me, it was like, I don't believe in the religion, therefore I don't believe in God, rather than like thinking about a God initially. But I don't agree that that objective morality comes from a God. It's it's something that it's difficult to say, because what God are we talking about? Is it just
I would love to talk to you about which God I believe it is and why, and possibly why you were pushed away from your religion. But I would like to establish a basis for God. So if we can establish that there is an objective truth, say there is an answer to 2 + 2 = 4, then that means out of the infinite answers, infinite possibilities, there is one answer.
Maybe, but objective truth and objective morality are kind of two different topics. And don't get me wrong, I'd love to talk about either, but I'd love it if we could just kind of focus in on one or the other or something else.
Okay. Well, let's focus in on morality, on the understanding that morality is truth.
Okay.
It is an objective truth. That is objective morality.
That it's an objective truth that morality exists, or that morality is objective.
So, is it objectively true that it is morally wrong to torture a baby?
Okay.
Would be a pretty.
How would we know if something is objectively true in that sense?
Do you believe that it is objectively true that it's morally wrong to rape a child?
Well, sure.
Or do you think that it's more up to the individual and it's more of an opinion, subjective based opinion?
Well, either answer to that question. I mean, that's still my beliefs, and my beliefs don't necessarily make something objectively true or not. So I'm not sure if like me answering whether I think something is objectively true or not makes it objectively true. Does that make sense?
Yes. So do you believe there's only one answer for 2 + 2?
Do I believe there's one answer for 2 + 2? I guess that's a mathematics question. That's kind of different from like a morality kind of question, don't you think?
Well, it is a truth that we understand of math, and it is a constant that we can go based off the laws of logic. We can deduce and infer.
Maybe, but I almost think that math is almost something that we kind of create too. I think it's something that it's a system that was definitely come up by humans. I actually teach math to a group of kids, and whenever I do that, like you can tell like this stuff isn't as intuitive as we kind of make it seem. Like if you show a kid 1 + 1, they don't like especially if we're talking about like really young kids, that's not something they immediately grasp. They have to know the symbols and they have to know the abstractions that kind of come with that.
Right. Mm-hmm. Right. So, but it's less of us inventing math. Rather, we discovered a constant in our paradigm. Would you, in a way to would you agree?
So I could see what you're saying in the sense that there could be constants of morality that we could discover. But even if there were constants of morality that we could discover, how would we know that they're objectively true or not?
Well, that's what I'm saying. Without God as a standard, without an objective standard, you can't say baby rape is wrong. You can only say, in your opinion, you don't like it.
Yeah.
You can't say it's objectively wrong.
Go for it, Mimzy.
For me, like, I kind of struggled with this, so I don't know what kind of background yours is, but, I felt like it was immoral, for example, for a person to be persecuted because they were homosexual. And I was taught and believed that God was against homosexuality. So it was like, that was from my own moral compass, that I couldn't stand by that. And I was taught that, this is God's morality, that homosexuals weren't allowed to be homosexual and they should be punished, whether it's in this land or this country or this world or in the next world, in hellfire. So I don't know what your beliefs on that.
So homosexuality, actually, that's a pretty good place to start because, I do believe it is a sin, absolutely, but we are all sinners. So yeah, that's the whole part about grace and faith, grace by faith. If you are homosexual, you are definitely a sinner. That does not mean you're going to hell.
Okay. But Jason, what would you say to other Christians who say that homosexuality isn't a sin? And they're saying that they're basing their standards based on their own biblical interpretations. Or maybe I know Christians that have said that they felt God tell them, like, it's okay to be who they are. I mean, in that sense,
so
it seems to me that they're using God as their standard as well, but we're kind of getting different results from that.
Absolutely. And you know what? That's one of the biggest problems with these sects such as Mormonism, Jehovah's Witness. They are twisting the words in the Bible to create a new way of thinking that is actually it ensnares a lot of people. And when they finally find out that it's not true and they find out the problems with it, they want to throw God away. They don't want to just throw away that one sect and, continue their search. But that's a big problem.
Really, I want to get to the heart of this, Jason. I want to know, how do you know that they're twisting it and that you're not actually twisting it? Okay,
so the Bible says that he wrote the truth on all men's hearts. Okay, so we all can know truth without even the Bible, even though the Bible makes it a whole lot easier and it is a weapon against spiritual immorality. I know that homosexuality is a sin because it says it in the Bible, and because of my own feelings on it. It's probably the thing that I would want to not happen to me more over anything else would be to be taken homosexually. I can't think of much worse on a morally. I mean, that's just how it's written on my heart.
But you understand though that and I'm sorry to interrupt, Jason, but I know other people who feel differently, who feel in their heart that this thing is okay. So I'm wondering, like, why should one person's feelings matter more than someone else if we're interpreting what's objectively morally good in this case?
So if we're talking about what is sacred, I would say sex is sacred. Sex is not just for pleasure. Sex is, and in the Bible, it actually says right there. It says that sex is only to be performed under the constraint of marriage, and then marriage is for a man and a woman that become one in the flesh. And the woman, there's different roles within a marriage that creates a symbiosis to where marriage is actually a healthy thing.
Okay.
And where a man has a role of providing and protecting, whereas a woman is more of the nurturer.
So what I'm kind of hearing,
yeah.
I'm kind of hearing that you're using the Bible as kind of your standard. Basically, like if it's not your feelings, you go to the Bible to see if this is true. What makes the Bible more of an authority on your life than, say, I don't know, the Quran or some other books?
Okay, so that's the whole point. See, that's why I go to the Bible, like for someone who would say that they're Christian and that they also advocate for homosexual marriage, which I don't care if you go out and find some pastor to marry you. Well, I do care. I wish you wouldn't, for your own sake. But I don't care. If you do it, I'm not going to stop you from doing it. But that's the problem. The Bible is infallible morally, and it isn't proven wrong.
Ooh.
And it never. So then we're getting back into to.
Do you know the Bible is infallible?
Absolutely.
How do you know that the Bible is infallible?
Because it's God's word. Okay, so.
But how do we know it's God's word?
So can we talk about, and we could come right back to this, but we need to establish a basis for there being a God in the first place.
Maybe so.
Origins.
Maybe so. Yeah.
Time-space continuum. Yeah.
Well, okay. Well, I'm not sure what the time-space continuum has to do with the Bible being true, though. Like the Bible being infallible.
I promise you, I'm headed somewhere with this, bud.
Okay,
I promise.
I'll let you give your spiel, but if we're going off a little topic, I gotta narrow it back down because I let a lot of people talk on the show, and sometimes we don't get anywhere because we kind of go on tangents and things, myself included on that, by the way.
That's why I wanted to start with: is there a God?
Okay.
So if we can establish the origins of time-space continuum, I know a big one today is, the Big Bang. Okay, and something from nothing, absolute nothing, which is hard to understand. I've heard it referred to as what a rock thinks about, is kind of a good way to understand what actual nothing is. But I'm talking, a lot of scientists say, well, there was an energy and a vacuum no, that's not nothing. So,
do you know that the world, that space-time continuum came from nothing?
Well, it came from God.
Okay.
But in a sense of anything pertaining to the space-time continuum, no, that was not the nothing. There was nothing related to the space-time continuum before God, which is the only thing that was not created, the only being that had not created.
Okay, well, I got to ask you then, how do you know it was God? How do you know it was Yahweh?
Well, what I'm saying is, you need a mover.
Okay,
you need a banger.
Sure, but how do you know that? But okay, I mean, we could go as far as to give you maybe there has to be a mover, maybe there has to be some sort of prime creator and stuff, or whatever the term is. That's not what the term is, but a prime mover. I was about to say prime directive, but that's another thing. Right. But and we talked about this with an apologist last week that kind of came in with kind of the same argument that, there has to be this kind of big mover to start it all. But I still don't know how we could know that, first of all, that it was one God, or if it even was a God, or more specifically, the Christian God. Because, Mimzy over here had this belief that it was the God it was Allah, it was somebody else, it was, and it came with all these other things, and that the Quran had jurisdiction over people and not the Bible. So, I'm failing to see kind of the connection of how we go from a prime mover to the Christian God. And maybe you can help me.
Okay. So awesome. So if we can first establish the basis for a prime mover, or a being God that was not created, that is outside of the time-space continuum.
I'll just give it to you. I'll just say, look, sure, it was a prime mover. I just want to know how you know it's a Christian God. Okay,
so if we can establish the fact that something does not come from nothing, and that it must come from an intelligent mind that decided to create, because it was a decision, obviously, because it had a beginning. So, okay, so let's say there is a God.
I don't know. How do you know it was an intelligent mind, or any kind of mind?
Well, because it decided. Because there was a point in time, and most physicists agree that it was everything came into being, at once. All matter. You can't add or subtract matter from our universe. and time goes eternally, or they don't believe that time goes eternally in the past. So that would mean there's an eternal amount of past moments, which would mean we would never be able to come to today.
Okay,
because
but I'm still wondering how you know it's a mind, like it was a decision maker, and maybe it was something else that we don't understand.
Because it happened.
Well,
because it happened.
Because it happened. I mean,
So
I'm not sure.
If it happened, that means it's a decision.
I don't think things happening mean that they have to be a decision.
Well, you might be thinking along like within your understanding of chemical reactions, where this needs to happen before this happens in sequence. What you're thinking about.
I'm just wondering how you know that it's a mind and everything, because you haven't gotten me that far, and maybe Mimzy can chime in.
I mean, I think I get what he's saying. He's saying that, like, I mean, obviously I don't personally agree, but he's saying that basically because the God had created this kind of exquisite design and decided to create, and have the Big Bang and have everything happen, that makes him intelligent. Is that what you were saying? Like, because it must be of intelligence.
Yes, and not only that, I mean, you could look into DNA, and now we're seeing messages and actual patterns and books. If you could,
and how complex, everything is, so that it must be an intelligent being or whatever.
A message needs a messenger, right? That's it's basic philosophy.
Yeah, so I'm with Dan. If we establish that, let's just for the sake of the argument establish there's a God. I would really like to know. I actually have loads of questions, actually, but we'll start with this. But I would really like to know, like, why is it the Christian God? So there's a God. He's created everything. Why is it the Christian?
Okay. So then we would have to go to. So that's why I wanted to start with origin and establish a base for a prime mover, and then move on to, is there an objective morality? This is how I came to my.
I'm not sure that's what she's asking, though, Jason. I think she, like me, she's asking how you know it's the Christian God.
No, I understand.
Do you have to prove objective morality before you can prove God? Like, is that a necessary?
Yeah, it is very helpful. Okay. Very helpful.
Can we go with what's... Go on, Mimzy.
I was just going to say, I would really like to know, like, your personal opinion, like, rather than just like kind of, well, this is what we like, what drives your belief, like your own personal, like, I know there's a God, I know that Christianity is true, and this is why.
Yes.
I want to know that.
So okay. So basically, this is how I found God, and it's not a faith, it's a knowledge. I know for sure, and it's the only thing I do know. There's a lot of things I don't know. All else is based on maximal probability and probability math. But so God is the only thing I do know, because you need a prime mover. It becomes a circular, right where it becomes the circular argument.
Is that your only reason? Like, because there must be. Oh, sorry, did I just interrupt you? Were you going to say more?
So right when I found out that there is a prime mover, because there has to be something outside of the time-space continuum. So you're not going to find him within the time-space continuum. Well, he's omnipotent. He's through the time-space continuum, and it came from him. So once you find that out, and then you move on to objective morality, which I will never not believe in objective morality. That's why I can be mad if someone rapes someone. I can be mad, and I can stop it passionately, and I'm very passionate about truth. That's why I can say things are right and wrong. So I believe in objective morality. So if I can believe in a primary mover and objective morality, that means that I believe in a loving God, because life is beautiful. Life is so beautiful, and now this is where it gets hard to talk to atheists a lot of times, because they refuse to acknowledge the sixth sense, I guess you could call it, which is, love and understanding and personal revelation and just knowing in your heart, I guess you could say, where people say, follow your heart instead of your mind. Mm-hmm. Your mind's just a computer. Your heart is your compass. They call it the moral compass. So if you can't use your moral compass, we will never come to an understanding. If you do believe in a moral compass where you can say things are wrong and right, absolutely, then yes, through personal revelation and that understanding, I realized that God is loving. And how I realized that is I would go through every bad thing I've ever been through, which is quite a lot, I must say. That's for another talk. I would go through all the hells I've ever been through for one moment with maybe my mother or my daughter or someone that I truly love. And it's so scandalously in my favor. And I find myself being unappreciative a lot of times, and this is one of my pearls that really helps me to understand how lucky I really am and how spoiled I really am. So I found that he is a loving God. Because why haven't I killed myself? I don't want to die. I want to live.
Jason, I don't mean to interrupt your story, but Mimzy comes from a religion that has a lot of personal revelations about and prophets and people who have said that this is true because God has told me this thing. And I think you would agree at least that you don't believe that that's true in the same way that I don't believe that a lot of what those people are saying are true. But are the reasons that we believe those things are true the same, or do you think they might be different? Because I think the reasons I believe they aren't true are because I don't see a mechanism as to how that could be true, and they don't seem to be as consistent with each other, whereas you're saying it has to be the God of Christianity because of some reasons that you've given.
I thought you were saying. Sorry, I thought you were saying it was a personal revelation, like not in the sense of like prophets, but like when you mentioned sixth sense, like is it something like a spiritual thing you've experienced? That's what it sounded like to me.
Well, a lot of prophets have sixth sense experiences. At least maybe they wouldn't use those terms, but I think that's where a lot of that comes from. If not, observing the things around them, right? I don't know. At least in Islam, I think isn't that true? I mean, they have messages from God that are kind of personal.
Sorry, I've forgotten the caller's name. What
this is Jason.
Jason, sorry, Jason. So no, but is it something that have you experienced something yourself where you've like? Because I've heard this from Muslims, but it sounds like that's what you were saying. Am I mistaken?
No, in a sense, you're correct. Absolutely, it is personal. It's partly personal revelation, but my search for God never once was driven by personal revelation. It was driven more from a visceral, intrinsic need for meaning and purpose in life, for it to have any significance whatsoever.
Wow.
And
I'm sorry, we keep interrupting. You've been doing really great, by the way. Thanks for talking to us. Do you think that we could have meaning without God? Do you think that's possible?
No, you cannot. Why? Because mathematically you're infinitesimally reduced to absolute nothingness. Every moment, billions and billions and billions and billions and billions of years, the highest number you can think of is absolutely nothing when you're speaking of infinity. And that is a very scary, scary thought. But that is hell. That is what hell is infinite without God.
If we are like really good people, let's just say, even in terms of like Christianity, let's say like we give to charity, like we are like wholesome and like have a family and like we're all the kind of, we hold very similar ideals to Christians, but we're not Christian. Would we go to hell?
No, and that is the gospel. And that's why, okay, so real quick, I believe in a loving God, and I believe that a loving God, obviously through inference and my own understanding of love, because he made us in his image, I can then determine that he would give us a message. He would send a way to know truth. So he would try to basically communicate with his creation. And through his communication, we understand that salvation with God is not attained through works, but by grace. So no, we are all sinners, but God knows your heart. And well, here's another thing. A lot of people will say, I see in the comments here, a lot of people will say, well, it's the best world God can muster in a sarcastic tone. No, he needs the contrast to prove the truth. Because again, objective truth, it's just like light. That's actually why they call Jesus the light, is because any physicist worth his sailing knows that darkness is actually nothing. It is only the lack of light. So that, but in our dualistic paradigm understanding of reality, we can understand what is not light, which is darkness. And that is exactly why he needs evil. And you can't have evil without good. You can't have good, which is objective truth, without an objective prime mover.
I hear you, Jason. I hear you. You know, like there are so many things we could explore, and I totally wish we had more time to have this conversation. But I do need to get to some other callers. But Jason, you know, I think we made some more progress this week than we did last week, and I'm really happy about that. So if you want to keep calling into the show and want to call in next week, I'd be down for that, man.
It's up to you, man. I don't want to bother you.
Hey, well, we have some other calls we got to get to now, but yeah, I mean, think about it. If you have some time next week, maybe we can continue this discussion. Does that sound good?
Yeah, absolutely. But one more thing, if I could.
Very quickly, give you 30 seconds.
Very quickly. Mimzy.
Yeah.
A lot of things in the Quran are easily refuted. And look at Muhammad. He's a warlord. He beheaded 600 people. He slept with young girls and married them. Jesus did nothing of the sort. Jesus is completely different. I would say that not throw away God because of a false understanding of him. And I wish you the best. Now, maybe I'll talk to you soon.
All right, Jason.
Jason.
Take care. Man. Well, I think we just got evangelized there, Mimzy. What did you think about that?
That was my first time. I kind of feel honored. Like, oh, thanks. No, but that was really fun. I have a question, though, if I can ask you. There's something I'm confused about Christianity.
Okay. Yeah.
Because I hear this a lot. Like, Christians say, like, we're sinners and, like, we're all sinners. But, like, then I hear them say that Jesus died for our sins, right?
Yes.
So how does that work?
That's a great question. You'd have to ask a Christian how that works, because I don't know.
Okay. There's just no explanation.
Well, I mean, there's some theological ideas of the Jews believing in this idea of having a covenant with God, and that Jesus kind of fulfills this covenant with his people, and that because the Jewish people had to make sacrifices to atone for their sins, essentially. And so Jesus, instead of having to use animals and these other kinds of sacrifices, Jesus kind of became the ultimate sacrifice for people's sins. So that's kind of one theological view on how, that's the one that I grew up with and I'm most familiar with. There are other kinds of ideas about that, but that's one interpretation.
So if he died for the sins, then you're not sinners. Great. Right?
Yeah, so that's an interpretation too, and I don't know if that's what he believes. It kind of sounds like it, but there is two different schools of thought on that, on whether or not you have to, Christianity, there's always schools of thoughts on everything, whether or not everybody is saved, or you have to specifically have a belief, or whether you have to continue with action. I mean, you ask a Christian, ask 12 different Christians, you're going to get 12 different answers,